Welcome. I'm Jalen. I'm a part-time family physician and full-time mom to 3 kiddos. My husband and I live in the Pacific Northwest. It is crazy times right now. I did not ever think that I would be sitting down in the middle of a pandemic making a video about how to stretch your grocery budget and shopping trips. I had my very first long emotional cry today, which I think was very needed. I don't cry very often. I tend to be a fairly steady person, and I think that I really needed a cry. We picked up free lunches through our school district because the kids had not left the house in about 10 days. And I was really grateful to just go on the short drive, let them see their school, and I totally lost it after we drove out of the driveway. I am on Instagram and have been doing fairly regular updates of very broad spectrum medical information that's related to my profession. This video is not about that though. This video is about how to sustain your pantry and your refrigerator through a time when groceries are not readily available. Shout out and fist bump, elbow bump from across 6 feet away. Some sort of accolade for the truck drivers and farmers and orchardists and people who are growing our food. We actually have the Little House on the Prairie book series, and I'm like, dang, I gotta read that again because I need to channel some Mall Wilder here up in this place. Last night at 10:30 at night, after I got back from grocery shopping, my husband and I spent a very felt like long time unloading our groceries into the middle of the garage and handing them off one by one after I wiped everything with bleach. The most relevant part to your grocery store trips, which you're going to see in the video in just a minute, is that we know that in an air drum, in a lab environment, these viral particles can be suspended or aerosolized in the air for 3 hours. That's a ridiculous amount of time, especially considering that things like the flu die after about 20 minutes of contact. It can live outside of human beings for days. And one of the most relevant things that you'll notice is that because we don't have very defined answers from a real life in vivo or in real life versus in vitro in a petri dish or lab environment, we don't have real life in vivo information. We are just taking an abundance of caution. Another thing to keep in mind is that we really try to be environmentally conscious in this household. We are not like I love the zero waste people, but we are not there yet. It's a constant work in progress. So we've been using primarily diluted bleach, which is an EPA approved cleaner. The dilution measurements are on the CDC's website, and I just use a microfiber rag, which goes directly into the washing machine on hot with more bleach to kill whatever it comes into contact with. In an attempt to kind of reduce the amount of waste, I feel like I'm producing a ton of waste at work when I gown up and gear up in my personal protective equipment to swab patients or see patients with respiratory symptoms. I feel like I need to compensate for a little bit of that when we come home. And so we've been kind of simplifying our cleaning routine. I would do what you're comfortable with. There's really no easy answer to this. Like I said, we really are trying to separate what I bring home from work versus what is in our home all the time. If you have more questions, drop them in the comments below, and hopefully this will answer some basic questions about sustaining your pantry and your refrigerator through this whole thing. I'm posting our meals regularly on Instagram as well, so if you need some kind of meal information that's using very whole foods basic ingredients, you can go there. Another suggestion that I have is to really maximize your use of garlic and spices. There are many ancient cultures, many of which have proven to be some of the healthiest in the world. The Mediterranean diet is one of them, that uses a ton of herbs and spices and a ton of garlic, and the food, it tastes amazing. But anything that you can optimize the use of flavor in sustainable foods that last a long time, your belly is going to be much happier. We buy a lot of onions. They can be stored in cold temperatures, like in an insulated garage, for a very long time. And I almost always add them to almost everything that we're cooking. It adds a lot of flavor to our food. We were completely out of potatoes, so here I'm restocking. These also last for a very long time if they're stored in cool temperatures and not washed. Here I'm grabbing carrots and broccoli, which if the moisture is kept off of them with a paper towel in the fridge, they can last for up to 3 weeks. Next up is fruit. We go through a lot of this. My kids love fruit, but at this point in time, I'm gravitating towards apples, pears, and citrus fruits. These all last much, much longer, although in our household, they're consumed before they can go bad. My cart always fills up really fast in the produce section, but we were out of a lot of food. We already had almost an entire head of cabbage and 2 heads of kale that I bought almost 2 weeks ago. These things last a really long time, and they're great things to load your cart up with during this time where groceries are scarce. Something to keep in mind when you're shopping is that you want to choose foods that are going to last quite a while. And if you choose to buy things like berries, which I did last night, we're going to eat those and prioritize eating those before we eat things that are more sustainable. Apples are one of the most versatile foods, and when stored in a cold temperature, they can last for months, actually. We use them for breakfasts, for snacks. We make applesauce out of them. We add them to our smoothies. Things like bell peppers, zucchini, cucumber are probably not going to last you more than a week. So if you choose to buy them, make sure you're buying them and eating them quickly. Here I'm grabbing a couple of bell peppers. Did you know that the bell pepper on the left is better with 4 humps for eating raw, and the one on the right is better for cooking? When I find fresh herbs on sale, I always buy them. I love adding them to broths. Possibly the most important aisle of the store during this pandemic while we're stuck at home with our children. Just kidding. If you guys haven't tried Murph wine, it's our favorite. It's about $11 to $13 a bottle and is delicious. We eat meat about 3 times a week, and I was adding to our sausage supply. Always check the saturated fat in the meat you're buying. You might be surprised. I was definitely not prepared to pay $7.99 for 12 ounces of dried rice during this shopping trip, but such is life. Another thing to keep in mind is that there is no shame and absolutely no nutritional deficit in using foods from the freezer. Most foods are frozen at their very peak of nutrients and antioxidants, and by doing that, you can preserve the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are found in those foods, the micronutrients. So when we buy foods from the store that have traveled a very long ways from other countries, from other parts of the world, they are picked pre-peak and pre-maximum antioxidants and nutrients. So in many cases, things like strawberries, for example, that can be frozen at their very peak could potentially be healthier than those that have traveled a very long distance and ripened without the sun, not on a vine, and instead in the back of a truck or a boat. So there is no shame in buying freezer vegetables, fruits, etc. And I actually would encourage it because they last much longer. And most of the time, if they're incorporated into soups or pies or casseroles or what have you, you really can't even taste the difference. You will never find me on here preaching that the microbiome rules your body. But what we do know is that similar to my probiotic video, which I will link down below, we do know that extra fiber in our diet feed our microbiome. The little bacteria like to munch on the fiber. And when we increase our dietary fiber to what the current recommendation is, which is somewhere between 29 and 36 grams of dietary fiber per day for healthy American adults, sometimes people have a little GI upset. So for example, if you guys are used to eating very processed low fiber foods and all of a sudden you take heed of what I'm suggesting and you're eating onions and cabbage and garlic and fermented foods, your belly's not going to be very happy, and the person that sleeps in your bed is not going to be very happy, and you're probably going to need some Beano or Gas. Whenever we buy bread, I always like to look first at all of the ingredients and make sure that it's a whole, non-enriched flour. The second thing I look at is the fiber content. Maximize that fiber in your bread if you're going to eat it. Contrary to popular belief, peanut butter typically falls in a fat category. Check that out, 3.5 grams of saturated fat per 2 tablespoons. Try to avoid palm oil. We ended up buying Adam's peanut butter with only 3 ingredients and 3 grams of saturated fat per 2 tablespoons. It's reasonable. So conveniently, my camera battery died right in the middle of the grocery store, but here I am. We unloaded all the groceries into the middle of the garage. We don't want to contaminate our house with potential viral particles. John was kind enough to bring out most of our empty storage containers, primarily which are glass. And here we go. We started unloading. Quick reminder that if you can't find Clorox or Lysol wipes, diluted bleach does the job. I took every individual item out of the grocery sacks and some of the reusable bags that I'd brought and wiped each item before placing it on a kind of a neutral spot at the top of the stairs in our garage. I didn't go in the house until my shoes, socks, and jacket was off in order to decrease the risk of contamination. If I'm honest with you, it's kind of hard to believe that this is our life at this stage in time, but better safe than sorry. And because of the way that this virus is known to spread and lives outside of a human host for such a long time, I definitely would recommend taking every extra step of caution to decrease the risk to yourself and your family. I unfortunately didn't bring enough reusable grocery bags, but you'll see those mesh bags that I'm using that we store produce in. Those, as well as the reusable grocery sacks, were put in a pile in the garage. I sprayed them with bleach, which you'll see at the very end, and they went straight into the washer on hot with a bit more bleach to kill everything. This truthfully is an arduous process, and it was really tiring. It took over an hour to unload the groceries from the car, put them in the middle of the garage, wipe down each individual item, put it at the top of the stairs, which we consider neutral ground, and then John would bring them from the top of the stairs into the house. It seems really exhausting, and quite frankly, I was tired at the end of it, but our house is clean. There was no risk of contamination because of the precautions we took, and I feel good about that. You astute observers might have noticed I was wearing a mask in part of the grocery store. I did this because I still have a mild cough from influenza about 2.5 weeks ago. Better to be safe than sorry. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Cereal, what? Our kids get 1 bowl of cereal per day, and when the cereal is gone, I don't buy any more for an entire month. I realize there's not a whole lot of nutritional content, but guys, let's be honest here. Cereal's delicious. Let's talk about snacks for a minute. I've posted quite a few snacking plates on Instagram. Our kids get snacks twice a day. Usually it's some combination of fruit, a nut or nut butter, and some sort of snacky cracker. Now, I know that the nutrition nuts are probably like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Hey, we love it. I feel like we're pretty balanced overall. The freezer should be your friend. We put all sorts of things in here. Obviously frozen vegetables, frozen meat, but I often will make leftovers and add that to the freezer so I can pull it out sometime when I don't feel like cooking. Most of our clothes and coats, if we've been out in public, have been stored in the garage. Remember that we know this virus lives on cardboard for 24 hours. Cloth, I haven't seen any studies yet. That's it. We were up until 11:15 wiping down our food, wiping down the boxes, separating the bags. I still have a pile of reusable grocery bags out in the garage, which I will leave out there for 72 hours, and then I will tote them downstairs to put them in a load with a tiny bit of bleach in hot water in order to completely sanitize them and reuse them for our next grocery trip. There is a lot that is unknown. We do not know how supplements interact with this virus at this juncture. We do not have a treatment that is guaranteed to cure people of this. We do not have anything except hand washing, social distancing, isolation, shelter in place, and EPA approved cleaners that will protect you from this virus. You cannot boost your immune system. You can support it. You can optimize what you were born with, but you cannot boost it through any supplement. So if there is nothing else that you walk away with, wash your hands, be kind to each other, and you will get through this. So from our family to yours, wash your hands, be healthy, and let me know what you think. Bye.